Are you afraid of book reports? Should you have turned in your book report a long, long time ago? Are you getting messages from your teachers threatening you? Do you not even know how to write a book report? Then this video is for you. Hi. I am going to tell you how to write a book report. I'll tell you everything that you should put in there, and of the things you should put in there, I will explain a few things so that you can write about those things properly. So you are currently in V4 or V5 or V6, and you're writing a book report about one of the books that you've chosen to read for the book list, for the oral exam you will eventually have in V6. To prepare for that exam properly, you need to take certain things into account to prepare for them properly. So it is important to write a good book report so you can refer to that when you are preparing for your oral exam. So following this video, I'm going to explain some things to you shortly, um, and help you write the best book report you could possibly write in the world. Okay, so you open up a Word file, and you get ready to write a book report. What you do is you make different headings for all the stuff I'm about to show you. That should go in there, and then you just type your text underneath those headings. Okay, so that is very clear and easy for us to check. First thing you write about when you're writing a book report, this is the start, is just the general information. So if you just get a first heading that says basic information, just give us a quick overview of these three things. The next heading should say the narrative. The narrative consists of several sub things. I'm going to quickly go through them now, explain a few things, and then there's narrative perspectives and round versus flat characters that I'm going to go into in more depth in a moment, okay? So, under narrative, you will describe the setting and its significance to the story. Remember that setting is not just the geographical location of the story, it's also the vibe of the place, basically. Is it scary? Is it not? Is it safe? Is it not? And also the time. Is it in the future, in the past, in the present, etc.? Explain to us what that does to the story, okay? Explain something about the main characters and, if necessary, important minor characters. Just tell us about the protagonist and explain whether that's a round or flat character and how you know that. I'm going to show you, like I said, what round versus flat characters are in a moment, okay? What is the narrative perspectives? Gives a quote from the book that shows you that that is the narrative perspective. Again, I will show you what narrative perspectives are in a moment, okay? Give a description of the chronology of the story. What is the effect of this? So the chronology is, how do we jump into the story and how does it unfold from there on out? So do we jump into it in the middle of the action, or do we start with a bit of a exposition first? And as the story unfolds, do we get flash forwards, flashbacks, or is it just going forward chronologically? Okay, tell us what it is and what is the effect on the story, and why is the writer chosen to do this? Lastly, what is the author's style? Is it very factual and cold, maybe? Is it very poetic? Is it very long? Is there a lot of dialogue? Not much dialogue? And explain to us again what the effect is. Why do you think the writer writes like this? Or what does it make the story feel like? Okay? Now, for two of those things, I will go into a little bit more depth. So, narrative perspectives on round versus flat characters. First, narrative perspectives. There's three that we take into account, with a bit of nuance in the last one. First person perspective, second person perspective, and third person perspective. I'm going to show you examples and explain to you what each perspective is like, okay? First person perspective looks a little like this. It is when you come across the word I a lot in the story. What that means is that the narrator is also the person that's going through everything, and you really get into the head of the person seeing everything, which is nice. You get a really deep connection to that person, but also it means that you could be getting a lot of flawed information. The person telling the story could be just having his or her opinion smattered over everything, or maybe she's even lying to other people or themselves. So it is very interesting, but it could have its flaws that just make the story better, honestly. I've given you an example here. You could pause the screen now, and you can pause the screen whenever there is too many words on the screen to calmly read it. There's an example of a first-person perspective in Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Second-person perspective. We don't see that very much. It's not very common. But it's basically when you come across the word you a lot. It is when the narrator seems to almost talk to you and tells the story to you as though you are the person going through those things. Okay? It is very interesting. I like it a lot myself when I have seen it, but I don't see it a lot. And again, I've put an example of an excerpt of a book that does it on the screen now. Now, for hi. For the following perspective, the third person perspective, there's two versions basically. We've got an omniscient version and a limited version. I will start with the omniscient version because that will help you understand the limited version better, I think. The omniscient version is like a godlike perspective. This person is somewhere in the world looking down on everything happening in a little box, maybe, and he or she can get into everyone's heads, know what they're thinking, and stuff like that. There's no limit to their knowledge. I've got an example of one of my favorite books, The Scarlet Letter, right here, where in passages we see how the narrator, the teller of the story, is omniscient. I've marked in red the fact that the narrator seems to know what the schoolboys are feeling and doing. And there in purple, the narrator also knows and is seeing what the person is doing for Hester, the main character of the story. If you pause the screen now, you can read through it slowly, and you can see that the teller of the story, the narrator, really seems to know everything and see everything. Okay? That is different from the third person limited, the perspective we see most commonly in works of fiction and such. It is when the narrator is an outsider to the action. Usually, it's just a voice. It's not like someone is telling the story, but this narrator who can see everything can only see everything as he or she, the narrator, is stuck to a character. The narrator only sees what that character is doing. I've got an example right here. I'll show you this one. Love at the Time of Cholera, one of my favorite books as well. Here in this passage, we see that the narrator is looking on and describes everything that the he in this here portion is doing. Okay, so that is third person limited. You'll see that a lot in a lot of works. Now, moving on to the second portion of the narrative that was a little bit difficult, characters. Every story has a character, so most of the time, and we'll see if you can identify round or flat characters. Here's the differences. Oops. Here is the differences. So, we have round and we have flat characters. Whenever you think of your favorite characters, probably they're round characters, because here are the traits of round characters. They are often complex characters. They undergo change, so the story actually does something to them. They learn a lesson, and they change over the course of the story. They are characterized by many different, sometimes even contradictory traits. What that means is that it's very difficult to just use one or two words to tell everyone what this character is like. They cannot therefore be summed up easily, and they are dynamic. They bring about action, and they undergo action as well. In a sense, the traits I've just described are basically just the opposite of a flat character. So a flat character is uncomplicated, remains the same, consists of like one or two traits, and can be summed up really easily. An example of a flat character to me is, for instance, SpongeBob. Right? What's SpongeBob like? He's cute, funny, cheery, and he likes making burgers and jellyfish. I've just basically summed up. He's annoying. I've just basically summed up SpongeBob. Right? Same for Homer Simpson. Funny character, but that's all he is. Right? He's a bit dumb. He's a father, and he's funny. At the end of the episode, he's always the same. In the next episode, he's back to just the way he is. He's the same character always. As for a round character, we'd have someone like Aang from The Last Avatar, or Kylo Ren from Star Wars. They actually seem to be difficult to understand, and it takes a second, and you can't just use a few words to describe to someone who or what these people are, right? As you can notice, and I'm sure some people are angrily typing angry comments below, there is a bit of discussion here. For some people, a certain character is not complex at all and is very uncomplicated, and maybe there is a change, or maybe there's not. So explain to us in your book report why you think a character is round or flat. to give you an indication not just of how debatable these things are, but also of how many round and flat characters and how to categorize them exist. I've made an overview of characters on the next slide, and you might find yourself heartily disagreeing with all the kind of characters I've categorized that way. If you do, tackle me in the hallways and we'll have a hearty discussion about any of these characters. But here is my overview of what I consider to be round and flat characters. Okay? Let's take Scar, for instance. Scar has a scar, and he's called Scar. He's got these evil black colors. He looks evil, and he does evil, and I would use the word evil lion to describe him. Does he learn anything? No, he starts out as an evil lion, and he continues to be an evil lion, and that's just what he does. A more interesting character to me would be Shrek, actually. It might sound silly, but he starts out grumpy and not wanting any friends and wanting to be left alone, but throughout the course of the story, he learns why there's value in being friendly to people, being an ogre, and he learns many lessons and he changes. All right, so that's an instance of a round character to me. Moving on, ladies and gents, to themes and sub-themes shortly. The final thing for you to write about, it is what is the main theme of the work under a new heading in your book report. What are some of the sub-themes? Themes are basically the central idea, the point of a story. What is it that the writer wanted to tell a story about? Is that love? Is that loss? Etc. That's a theme, and you probably come across them. And there's probably instances in writing, in stuff that the characters say or do that show you that a certain theme is present, a certain topic is comes across a lot. So we want you to explain it with examples and quotes. Explain the title of the work. Why this title? Often that is connected to the themes that the writer wanted to tackle in his story as well. Lastly, give at least 2 examples of a motive or symbolism in the work. A motive is basically a symbol that keeps coming back. It could be references to the moon. It could be a color. If a author refers to the same color at many points in the same way in his story, then that could be considered a motive. The eye that keeps returning in Lord of the Rings could be considered a motive. Or in the book called Moon Palace, references to space and the moon could be considered a motive. And that's a kind of symbolism. If you go through your book finally and really try and look out for it, you will probably come across many symbols or symbolisms and many motives as well. Okay, I hope that that's helped you out. Tackle your book report a little better. Now you know how to structure it. This video has been made in 2020, so it could be that the book report has changed in shape a little bit, so always go to your teacher to know exactly what to expect, but hopefully this video helps you out refining what things to write about a little better and helps you keep track of what things to look out for when you are reading the book. Okay? I hope that you really do enjoy reading the book. It's a privilege, I believe, and a blessing that you get to choose what book to read, and really make sure to use that as an opportunity to read what you like to read. Expand your borders and find a book that really speaks to you. And if you can't find one, again, go to your teacher, go to other English teachers, go to fellow students, try and find that book that just speaks to you, because there is one. And if you haven't found it yet, it's just a privilege because you get to find it soon. Soon you will have videos on this channel too to recommend certain books to you, and you can see what teachers and colleagues of mine recommend to you book-wise. I'll be making a book recommendation video soon, and maybe we can help you find the book that is good for you. Okay, now thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you'll be alright, and for any questions, just seek out your teacher. Okay, goodbye. Oops.